For me, play is actually uh, the just foundation of existence when safety is established. And so it's not like something that you go and create. It's something that allows itself to happen when n normal, what could be normal baseline physiological state is established, which is such an exciting idea because it's no longer is it like I'm chasing play or you're looking for it. You're actually just relaxing and allowing it to emerge out of you as it wants to.
Totally. The one
Which,
thing that,
if you think about abundance thinking, this idea of abundance, that for me is a portal into abundance thinking because if play is inherently abundant as the foundation of reality itself, then it's actually just about you getting out of your own conditioned way to allow that play experience to flow through you into the world. And for me, that's what David Hawkins is talking about in his collected universes of books, is he's talking about your capacity to get out of the way, letting go, and allow that power-based energy to flow into the world through you, which another way of saying that is play.
mm, mm, yeah,
And that takes away so much, and that takes away the error loop of culture where culture says you need to try harder to work to get to this state. It's like you need to work to get there, you need to do this, more effort, more work, more force to experience more freedom and joy. It's like, so what if it's the opposite? Actually, yeah. So
totally.
I
That's what,
feel like,
yeah.
oh yeah, what's coming up?
Just like that when you were first speaking, I was like, right, it's the one thing we actually don't have to achieve or earn or like work for, right? Because it's ultimately the natural state, as you were pointing to, like when safety is present or like thriving as the natural state. And for humans to start equating that like thrivingness with play as opposed to with hard work, achieving, earning, which just perpetuates scarcity.
Exactly. Um, and and even the idea of play as something which is a reward or something which is scarce is also limiting because it is just the inherent nature of how things are. So even the idea of thinking of play as something that is obviously it is special, but thinking of it as something which is special and something that you need to take time out to do is in itself a limiting and conditioned mechanism because of course play if play is the foundation of reality itself then it's not special at all in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah,
Okay, I feel like we can dive in. Um, so yeah, thank you everyone for being here. I'm really excited about this one.
you were gonna wear something funny, guy, to inherit play. We're gonna let you go with the sunglasses, but next time you have to wear like weird antennas or a hat. See what you can find. This was
Actually, yeah, that completely passed my mind.
That's totally okay. I
Uh,
didn't remind you. That's
I don't
fine.
own I don't own items like that.
I bet Tess weird at some
I want a
point.
tight I want a
I'll,
tight physical space budget.
I'll find
Okay.
something. Okay. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
you can embody that.
All right. Go ahead. We can see your screen.
Amazing. Um, so I'd just like to extend my gratitude to Paul Council for this presentation, and I've rebuilt it in my own image, shall we say. So this is a incredibly important topic of conversation, and for me, it's kind of at the highest of conversational topics. It's up there as number one in terms of where you start when it comes to thinking about creating new results. Because we can talk about strategy and tactics and you know business ideas all day long, but really what's important is the energy that you bring to those tactics and strategies and ideas. It's the energy underneath what you're doing, which animates it and brings it to life. And so, what is the quality of that energy? And we can calibrate that on the level of consciousness. And so, play and the exploration of play is a discovery of allowing incredibly powerful energy to flow through you and animate your projects and what you're doing in the world in a way that's so creative and insightful and interesting and joyful and expansive. And and really accessing play will open up a quantum leap in your ability to experience new results in every area. So this is a revolutionary new look at play. And so when I was young, we used to go camping a lot, all the time in Cornwall. And I always remember I had my magic show. I'd set up my magic show, and it was always raining and windy, and so I was the only one walking around the campsite. And I would go and like knock on the other tents and try and ask the other kids to come out and play to watch my magic show. But typically it was too windy or rainy. And now I actually find myself in the same position where I'm saying, would you like to come out and play and explore these expanded ideas of what human potential can be and what the human experience can be? Because there's so much essentially joy to experience. And that's why I'm so grateful for groups like this, because this is that practice of inviting people who are interested on a similar journey or a similar question of what's available. And so I'm always looking to see what kind of level of receptivity is available to ideas of more. Joseph Chilton Pearce notes that play is the only way for the highest intelligence of humankind to unfold. And that's a big statement. Play is the only way for the highest intelligence of humankind to unfold. It's also quite a counterintuitive statement because think about how we categorize play in our culture and how you typically think about play and what it means. It's not really placed up there in terms of like number one. It's not really, it's kind of something you do on the side. It's like a reward. It's like, okay, stop playing now, we're coming back to learning. But Joseph Chilton Pearce is saying that play is the only way for the highest intelligence and the highest potential of our kind to unfold. And so this play idea is so much more important, or could be so much more important than we are allowed to believe or led to believe. Joseph Chilton Pearce is by far my favorite author, and his books will invite you into just a magical world of human possibility. It's really an amazing experience to read his books and explore how he thinks about the universe. So I cannot recommend jumping into any of his books enough. He says that active imaginative play is the most important of all childhood activities because it's the dominant way that mastery of one's environment is gained and cultivated. And so if you look at all the ways that play is essentially prevented today and how much less play is available today than in the past through safety and sanitization and, you know, playgrounds are so much less dangerous. What book? Uh, Magical Child. This is Magical Parent, Magical Child, which is a accompanying book to that. It's a bit more practical. And in that book, Pearce coined the term creative competence to discuss the mechanisms to mastery of one's environment. Creative competence. So that's your capacity to understand and be competent and effective and masterful within an environment in a creative way. And so everything that we all, want to achieve on this call, essentially can only really happen through the mastery of one particular environment called money. And that money environment buys you the space and time to continue your development, to experience even more play. And so, if money is just a tool, then thinking about money through this perspective of play is such a refreshing breath of fresh air compared to the kind of stressful and work-based, effort-based ways of thinking about money that are typically available in culture. So, Jordan Pearce says that children who miss out on play go on to develop deep feelings of isolation and anxiety as adults. And we can see the amount of depression and mental illness and loneliness is increasing in the adult population today as a result of people being taken away from the play environment. Psychiatrist, clinical researcher, and founder of the National Institute for Play, Stuart Brown, notes that we are designed to play. We're built to play and we're built through play. It literally shapes the brain and makes us smarter. And so, why is it that play is disprioritized in modern economies while conditioning is prioritized in modern economies if it shapes our brain and makes us smarter? When we play, we are engaged in the purest expression of our humanity and the truest expression of our individuality. And you don't need to remember moments of play because they are so emotionally charged that they just go straight into your subconscious as a new program. But you do have to remember conditioning, and that's why we have to go through a rote learning process over and over again in order to become conditioned. And those are the two ways of essentially learning. You can emotionally charge your experience to an extent that it goes straight in. For example, if you're being chased by a tiger and it's a life or death situation, the things that you learn in that moment are going to be so emotionally charged that they bypass the critical faculty and they go straight into your unconscious as a new program for how to survive a future tiger attack. Well, the same is happening on the other side. And so if you can package your new learning experience and your new learning pathway, your new learning journey in business, in this play state, in this play experience, then how much more emotionally charged is the learning that you do on the skills that you're developing? Let's say it's in video marketing or in sales or in any kind of area that you're looking to progress. How much faster does that neuroplasticity happen when you package that skill development in the emotional charge of play? So is it any wonder that often the times we feel most alive, those that make up our best memories, are moments of play? Play is intensely pleasurable. It energizes and enlivens. It decreases stress, softens our burdens, and renews our sense of optimism. Imagine if there was a pill that did that. Uh, you know, It'd be pretty rich. And so this is what's available through this thing called play, except most people don't understand that and therefore they don't prioritize the space and time to actually come out and play. It's not seen as important. So it comes back to perception. More than anything else, play opens us up to new environments and new possibilities, opens us up to novelty. Play is something that is self-motivating and makes you want to do it again, while conditioning is the exact opposite. And so we have to put ourselves into the proper emotional state and psychological and physiological state in order to play effectively, which essentially is a process of letting go. When play involves others, we learn the rules of engagement, the ability to decide friend from foe, and we lose ourselves to time. We learn social rules and the creation of empathy, and we gain knowledge of how the world of people and things work. And so play is really how emerging intelligence comes to terms with the material world. It's your ability to run up against and test and push boundaries and feel them push back. And it's through that process of playfully exploring the edges of your potential at every stage that you gain a tangible learned experience of the environment that you're in. And it's through that tangible experience of the edges of your environment that you gain that mastery process. Because now I feel safe. I feel like I understand the particular level or environment or game that I'm playing, and I can play it as fully as possible. And so this so nicely ties into Robert Greene's mastery. because in order to experience that mastery process, we have to first learn the rules well enough to be able to break them. And it's that mastery, which is a masterful jazz musician is breaking those rules in such a playful way. But first, they really know the rules. And it's that play that allows us to learn the edges of the environment and come to terms with those rules. If we don't personally learn our boundaries, then an external system has to use conditioning to tell us that the boundaries are there. And so the boundaries aren't embedded in us in terms of a intuitive knowing or understanding. They're embedded in us in an ideological way. And so the boundaries are you can't go over there because of X, Y, and Z. It's not I can't go over there because I intuitively understand what's over there. And so we're essentially detached. We haven't come to, we don't get the opportunity to really integrate and embed ourselves into the world, and we feel like we're drifting and lost without this thing called play. And so that's connected to this idea of alienation. Original play is a term coined by pioneer play psychologist Fred Donaldson. And he's a pretty incredible person who basically went into the world and went into nature and studied how animals play. And he lived with animals in their environments and played with these animals, which are typically seen as dangerous, because he was able to understand and come to terms with the play postures that those animals were using and fit in. So he had that mental flexibility to be able to play with those potentially dangerous animals. And he understood the deep primal drive that existed within them to play. He discovered that play is a physiological and psychological state rather than just a cognitive exercise or a physical pursuit. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you can do it playfully. It doesn't matter what the contents of material reality are. What matters is the structure through which those contents are being experienced. Play is always available. And that physiological and psychological state is so much more important for the neuroplasticity and development that we're talking about than the actual activity that you're doing. It's that state which signals the neuroplasticity uh, in the brain. So original play evolved over eons in many animal species as a means of promoting survival and longevity. So this is actually a survival technology play. It's a vital technology for development because again, it's the way for the young of all the species to calibrate themselves with the material environment. It's how animals come to terms with and gain mastery over the environments in which they exist. It's not just a fun kind of activity, it's vital for your mastery and survival. Play is a state that shapes the brain and makes animals smarter and more adaptable. And we are an animal. And so if we don't get that shaping, then we're not as smart or adaptable as we could be. However, social engineering is not interested in your smart or adaptable potential. It's interested in your potential for predictability and conformity in the society. So while original play combines cognitive, affective, and sensory motor learning processes, it's not about games, sports, winning, losing, playing a game, or actually even having fun. Because all of those things are culturally based behaviors rather than spontaneous psychological and physiological states. Again, it's about the experience and the state in the psychology and the body rather than the actual activity of whatever's going on. And this is one of the ways that culture pulls us into effect instead of cause. And so we're kept at the secondary process rather than the primary process. We think that the sport itself is the play or the competition is the play. No, the sport and the competition are the emergent properties of play. The cause is abandoned and disregarded. It's not important. It's not important what state the athletes are in while they're playing. That's not a common idea. What's important is that they win. well, what if it was so much more important what state the athletes were in while they were playing and how joyfully they were playing the sport? And so that would be a different cultural priority. Donaldson's observations of states rather than culturally based behaviors stem from decades of play experiences and research with children, adults, and animals around the world. Original play is a way of relating to the world. And it's also his personal way of interacting with children and adults in the way that interaction happens in animal kingdoms. And so he's really doing a pretty radical thing here because he's practicing a new form of interaction with other people and really with the world in terms of creating spaces for original play to happen where it's not normally available. It transforms patterns of fear, aggression, and violence into love, kindness, belonging, and the courage to be kind and safe in all situations, which is available when you really understand your environment. Original play conveys a message of connection that's a powerful alternative to fear-driven learning and contest behavior. And within the social engineering and culturally shaped processes, there's always fear-driven learning and contest behavior, which limits rather than expands. And I just wanted to reference the value frame presentation from 3 weeks ago, where we talked about how the conditioning works instead of in terms of creating predictable people who pick up a label. And I just wanted to reintroduce that here in terms of this idea that of the need to bind up the energies of the irrational and destroy their imagination from Benedict Spinoza, and the idea that you have to cloud the minds with into meaningless competitions with each other in ways that eat up energy. And so this is a recurring principle when you study the social engineering over time, is this idea of competition between people and eating up energy in meaningless competitions, which is so perfectly represented through that contest behavior and what we talked about earlier in sports. And that's just a lower level of interacting with the world than what's available through something like play. After experiencing original play, a 10-year-old girl wrote, "Play is being able to tell the world that you don't like what it's doing to and not harming anyone while you do it," which really reminds me of that
Journey within.
Buckminster Fuller quote, uh, which we all know and love in
Love
this. Yeah, yeah. You never change something by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the old one obsolete. A 6-year-old boy asked his teacher, "Can we practice playing? Because if we practice, we'll get good at it and learn how to not hurt others and how not to get hurt." An 8-year-old boy with autism commented, "I wish I had a normal life. I wish I had a normal life. This is my reminder of a normal life." A 4.5-year-old remarked, "Nothing can get better than this." And a 6-year-old observed that real play is when no one is crying and no one has a broken heart. And so these are the really powerful impacts on children who've never experienced this physiological and psychological state of play before. And these are what they're saying. This is what they're saying in response to experiencing that. So that's just an insight into just how much of a profound experience this play state can be. And if you wanted a kind of meaning for life, if you were that way inclined, then this might be approaching one. Original play is applicable in business, education, family, relationships, and health because through it, we demonstrate better ways to expend energy than in postures of self-defense and contest behavior. In original play, we discover that love is more powerful than fear. And it's that conditioned postures of self-defense and contest behavior which prevent most people from progressing. They don't consciously understand that essentially a lot of your time is taken up defending positions, arguing, not believing, being skeptical, putting up resistance, wanting to put your position, opinion into the world, essentially wanting to be right, me-centric, essentially, all these ideas, rather than actually being truly present with the world, having the creativity and the flexibility to really be present with what's going on without bringing all of your things and rightness into it. In higher animals, notes Brown, play fosters empathy and makes possible complex social groups. And for us, it lies at the core of creativity. Now, the more creativity you have, the more you're doing original stuff, and the less time you're spending doing what's already been programmed through the conditioning. And so I made a voice note about this yesterday, where you cannot both tell old stories about who you used to be and at the same time train new behavior. You're either in an inhibitory state, recreating the past, or you're in an excitatory state, creating the future. And so creativity always has you moving forward. If you want to ensure that you're moving forward, then play and creativity is a sure channel into something that wasn't there before. But there's nothing creative about doing things from the past and repeating the past over and over again. But that's the error loop that we're conditioned to fall into. Cutting edge science indicates that play is one of the most important factors in being a fulfilled human being. Developmental biologist Bruce Lipton ignited the scientific community in the 1970s with his phrase, "It's the environment, stupid."
Love how monotone you say it. It's the environment, stupid.
I think he was probably a bit more passionate than that. It's the environment, stupid. He was
Stupid.
definitely passionate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I feel satisfied.
I will never forget a piece of wisdom I received in 1967 on the first day I learned to clone stem cells in graduate school. It took me decades to realize how profound this seemingly simple piece of wisdom was for my work and life. And Bruce Lipton was cloning stem cells before it was cool, back in the 60s, basically. My professor, mentor, and consummate scientist, Eöv Koningsberg, was one of the first cell biologists to master the art of cloning stem cells. He told me that when the cultured cells you're studying are ailing, you look first to the cell's environment, not to the cell itself, for the cause. But we're taught to look to the cell for the cause. And so we look at the person and the parents and the upbringing as the problem instead of the actual current environment that you're in. Though it wasn't apparent at the time, I eventually realized that this advice was the key insight into understanding the nature of life. When I provided a healthy environment for my cells, they thrived. When the environment was less than optimal, the cells faltered. So stem cells essentially have the potential to become really any kind of tissue. And essentially, they discovered this through accidentally changing the agar recipe of the plate that the cells were on. And they were confused because they were trying to figure out why some of them became nerve cells, some became muscle cells. And it was only when they realized that the agar plate recipe had changed, the environment of the cell had changed, that the gene expression of the cell was different in response. And so that's what led to this insight, and essentially the development of a new science called epigenetics, which is the study of how the environment impacts the cell and the gene expression of the cell. So there's actually something going on beyond and above the level of expression of just the genes. The genes exist as a potential, but then the environment dictates how they are expressed. It's now understood that missing out on play is one of the most damaging stimuli a child can experience in terms of the development of empathy, creativity, social interaction, innovation, and intelligence. I think that's meant to be one slide back. But essentially, epigenetics concludes that the environment is everything. There's nothing more important for the healthy development of children and their potential than the environment of play. And the same is true for your further development. There is nothing more important than the environment that you are in. This is a Renaissance painting from 1560 called Children's Games. And they've identified over 90 different games in this picture that were essentially being played by the children at the time. And just a quote about this painting is Bruegel shows the children absorbed in their games with the seriousness displayed by adults in their apparently more important pursuits. His moral is that in the mind of God, children's games possess as much significance as the activities of their parents. And that's what he's looking to express through this immense representation of the different types of games that are available. If you go looking in this painting, you can find so many different types of games. It's kind of like an ever expanding image that just gets more complex the more you look at it. One of the biggest breakthroughs in understanding the impact of the lack of play came during the 1990s. It was a time when Caltech, the academic home of NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, was experiencing a significant problem with the age-related loss of its skilled scientists and engineers. Since the 60s, not only were these scientists and engineers responsible for every manned and unmanned mission into space, they were responsible for the robot vehicles exploring the surface of Mars. Whenever a complex problem was handed to them, they would always say, yes, we can figure that out. So during the 90s, even though Caltech and JPL were recruiting the best and brightest minds from the best universities and engineering schools, the new recruits were not able to match the skills and inventiveness of their retiring counterparts. And while the bright new engineers excelled at theoretical and mathematical intellectual problems, their greatest weaknesses were in the areas of applying theory to practice. Unlike their retiring role models, they were unable to spot key flaws in complex systems, and they were lacking in their ability to toss ideas around and play with them, pull them apart, think about them, the critical elements, and reassemble them in innovative ways that led to unique solutions. Although these engineers had earned the highest grades at their respective universities, they were lacking in their ability to innovatively solve problems. What Caltech and JPL eventually discovered was that those who experienced original play as children, who had worked and played and tinkered with building things with their hands, pulling things apart just to see how they went back together, were more able to see and invent solutions than those who hadn't worked with their hands and experienced play as children. And so my dad always tells stories of what his childhood was like in terms of how they interacted with motorbikes and cars. And he said he always just had, you know, just motorbikes everywhere in the garden. They were constantly pulling them apart, rebuilding them. And then there's this idea of car culture. And so, but increasingly, the culture is saying that once a toy breaks, you toss it away. You basically buy a new one. So that's the philosophy of futility. So they forensically analyzed the situations, try and figure out what was going on with these engineers, and they found that the older engineers had played with and taken apart all sorts of gadgets, radios, crystal sets, engines, clocks. They'd made and assembled billy carts and fixed broken cars and appliances way before they became engineers. Caltech discovered that the magic of play and its creativity was critical for success and inventiveness. They also discovered that the escapism of play and problem solving was missing in the early lives of most of the modern engineers. And as a result, they actually changed the interview criteria to access the level of youthful projects and types of play each applicant had experienced during their formative years. And we're seeing so much more of this in terms of how companies are changing their interview criteria recently. They're no longer looking for degrees and diplomas and things like this. They're looking for these so much more tangible personal experiences. And I listened to something, essentially, they were talking about what these highest companies actually look for in applicants. And one of the things was that, well, we look for the hobbies. So I'm not interested in anything. We actually go straight to the hobbies section, and and they're looking for dangerous sports was the number one criteria. And so horse riding, absolutely. So it's any kind of sport where you've got a tangible personal experience of dealing and developing mastery over a complex environment. That's really what these companies are looking for. And then you even have companies like Palantir, I think, which are hiring straight out of high school and Google. And so they're not actually looking for university graduates in the same way that they used to it anymore. Neuroscientists now recognize that at its most basic level, play is pre-verbal, and it arises out of the ancient biological structures deep within our pre-conscious minds. And if you think back to our last presentation about that primal brain structure, that is the same primal brain structure from which play is emerging. And so it's so deeply embedded at the foundation of our being as the foundational learning mechanism for how we come to terms with the world. But conditioning and social engineering essentially pulls us into the more modern brain structures and then shapes and molds them around repetition and rote learning structures. Donaldson explains that to fully understand original play requires you to experience it rather than talk about it. We can't access original play through semantic, language-based understanding. It has to be done experientially. Because of its improvisational, spontaneous, and involuntary nature, play allows children to stumble upon new behaviors, thoughts, strategies, movements, and fresh insights on risk and ways of being. And who wouldn't want that for their children? And who wouldn't want it for themselves? And you can still get it now. Uh, and that's why it's so important to develop and create and enter into those environments where play is normalized and encouraged so that you can step into more of your potential and experience even more of that play. So that is developing intelligence. Thank you everyone for being here, and questions, comments, ideas, thoughts, insights, really anything that's coming up. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, thank you. Just the sorry about the noise in the background if you was too loud.
Oh,
We've got
Um
nothing.
yeah, it's just all the different pieces that were addressed to take a cohesive look from, biology and physiology to the state of being of play and the innovation of it's the first thing that occurred to me was spontaneity in play. And there's a modulation that happens when the empathy comes in, like and to take that into a creation of even in finance. Like I've been since starting this whole call, since Aspen reached out to me and on the first call, I had a practitioner who had said like you need to something's coming up in your cards that you need to find a financial teacher. And he's like, you're gonna stumble across a bunch of random shit that's not gonna mean anything and you're not gonna use, but you'll find the the thing. And as soon after the first call, I was like, oh, this is the magician. This is the wizardry that I'm actually looking for. Um, and the since starting this, there has been this complete like shift. I've recognized there's been this fear of looking at even at the accounts or the money because of the conflict inside of self between any of the values or ideals or stories that were held about money and how what money represented or whatever the story was. And since then, there's been this shift of I love math very much. And finally, I'm getting into the play because I love math. I'm forgetting about that it's actually money and that's my bank account. I'm just like, oh, how am I gonna make this matrix of numbers work together for my advantage and just kind of keep, feeding it in my mind and give it that energy. And when I look at it as numbers and math with joy and play, it's like actually my income had in the last year had gone down, but I actually feel the wealthiest I have even when I made twice as much money as I'm making right now. And there's just kind of this interlude of I really appreciate what you and Paul and Aspen are really doing. It's so um, I think it's really profound on a state of being level of what are the parts of self to open to in order for you to maximize your time and play. Like there's no other priority but play. I grew up in an environment that told me I'm not allowed to play, but I defied the environment and I jumped over walls and I went and I played and there was I taught myself I would take electric sockets apart and pens because I couldn't go outside and play with other kids. I needed to be inside. So it's like finding that and the most rewarding moments in life is when I figure out how to do something. And that's where I feel the play, and not from a place of trying to solve a problem, but it's that joy of discovery of, what the next layer is in play. So, yeah, thank you so much. Awesome presentation.
Thanks for your story. Um, and have you felt since joining this environment that you can relate to your old work in a new way?
Totally. Totally.
And could you kind of describe how you're relating to what you used to do? You're doing the same activities, but how are you now doing them in a different way?
There is there's a sense of wonder that is there. It's like I can figure out anything because really I have found in my experience in life, curiosity has been the truest compass you can find. And because when I'm curious and if I feel under pressure, I'm gonna figure it out. So it's like remembering that piece rather than that being like so far in the background and the fear and the worry is right over here. It's like just remember the times that I figured it out, however wild it may have seemed, the solution wasn't quite that far out there. It's the stress that I put on myself and the fears that I feed in myself is what creates the hurdles to get there. So really just kind of, for me, it's like just breathing and getting quiet and remembering and having like a switch on and being able to funnel into that. And like I do a lot more checking. I created a whole database on how to manage, how to track things on a calendar and have it visual. It's like engaging all of my learning senses in order for it to actually become a game. And it's like I really like to map things out. And once I do that, I don't have a worry or stress anymore because I can the system is already there inside of me and on a platform somewhere, whether it be Notion or mind map or whatever. It's just a matter of connecting the dots together and being able to be inconsistent with the play, that part of it as well.
Yeah, so you're kind of almost scheduling time for it or blocking it out as an intention. Yeah, I love what you said earlier about maths and joy because I completely understand that when you start looking at things through a more like mathematical or energy perspective, you can strip away all of the stories that come with it. And
Yeah.
then how much more joyful is it to just exist in that land of numbers and mathematical potentials when
Right.
it comes to your business, when it comes to money, without any of the emotional stories and ideas that come with work and money and all of that stuff. And so, definitely, I think returning to first principles in that way is such a powerful tool to access more play because it allows you to build on top of those first principles without any of bringing any of the stories with you. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Awesome.
Hey guys. um, Guy, I was wondering, do you have any information on how Caltech figured out that the new engineers were missing out on the play? Because I think that's really cool. A, the whole story's cool. B, how did they get to that point of realizing that's what was missing?
Great question. No, I don't, but I can definitely go and research and find out.
Yeah,
But basically, it would have been through a process of elimination in terms of like,
yeah, interviews and whatever.
yeah, forensic analysis in terms of what's going on here. Like,
Yeah,
what's the different variable? It's like how because there's a change going on. There's a variable that's different, and then I
yeah,
isolating variables until you find the one that no longer makes sense.
yeah, fully. Um,
It just happened. They reference it in chapter 2 or 3 of the book Play by Stuart Brown. He
okay,
explains the research he did to figure that out.
cool. Yeah, sounds like I need to read that book too. Um, the other thing it made me think of is the Imagineering department at Disney. Don't know if you guys know much about that. There's a doco on Disney about it, but it's like their department of engineers basically from the very start from Disneyland. He just kind of had a whole bunch of cool engineer guys and gave them free reign and a paycheck to just fuck around at all times, and they came up with like roller coasters and projectors and projection mapping and like incredible amount of stuff you wouldn't believe came out of Disneyland just from these guys, which is a whole bunch of guys and girls like set designers and model people and all these different whole bunch of really creative people with no goal but mess around with cool stuff and see what you make. And it's like and then it turned into like half of the theme parks and everything. And then at one stage they tried to axe that department and the whole entire Disney nearly went down. It's very interesting.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Um,
The Imagineering department.
Imagineering department. This book, Mastery by Thomas Green, keeps coming up in connection with this because one of the things he says in that book is this idea of like chasing the anomaly. And so if you want to unlock a new model or a new way of doing things, look at the anomalies or things that aren't working within the current model, uh, and they often open up a whole new paradigm. And I feel like that's kind of a similar thing here, where it's like you put all of this money and budget into something in Imagineering that doesn't necessarily make sense in terms of the overall vision of where you're going. But then that anomaly becomes the thing that carries your whole project. And I think even we
Yeah.
found this, Veronica, where it's like the intention that we set for this group was maybe one thing, and then maybe a small side tangent or thing has just come up and taken over and become the main thing that now carries the project forward. And so that's I think the power of that play. And then also Alex Hormozy talks about allocating a specific percentage of your ad budget to experiments every month and expecting to not make a return on that investment. And he always says that that is like the highest return on investment ad budget allocation that he puts out. So that's just another great example of this principle. So yeah, thanks, Tam.
Oh. Oh.
That's wild. I love that that came up because it's wild how expectation is actually the antithesis of creativity and play because it's actually forcing a future timeline, like a future construct predetermined as opposed to the experimentation that's available when you're not putting any expectations on it and just letting it unfold. And that's what I've actually appreciated about this group and these conversations, right? And those of you who are here, like the people who are like, oh yeah, like this is hitting and helping us shape this. It's like we're all just playing together and seeing what unfolds and creates more joy and value for all of us. So that's really the joy. A few people here. Oh, go ahead, Sophia, go.
Oh, sorry, I wanted to, do we have time for one more question from me?
Plenty of time. I was just gonna yeah, we got lots of time. I just was gonna let Mech and Cameron know, and Nahak, I think these are your friends, Guy, that the presentation ended. I'm sure Guy can send it to you after. But it was on play, but feel free to hop in if any of these comments inspire anything in you. Sophia, go for it.
Well, it's more of a personal struggle, almost quite very emotional. Sorry. I love the play, and I think that that's what really sustains me and helps me to be so creative with my even, scientific work that I'm doing. But what I often find that, well, two things. First one is the ideas and the desire and the drive to do something comes from the play and from the creativity. But then every time I try to actually make it work, and if we're looking at even, like completing the project, it turns into to-do list and it loses that play and excited thing, even though I still love the idea and I find it excellent. And it is incredibly creative in itself, but then it turns into the chore and a to-do list, and then I just can't persevere. And then my brain goes into a new, different, creative, fascinating, exciting idea. And then, I'm 36 now, and I have a pile of unfinished projects that did not ever came to life. All of them, if I, just talk to the people and share, they're incredibly creative. And I was like, wow, what an idea. But then, yeah. And I feel that there is that bit that this play state is lost. And then sort of I get distracted to something else, almost like, is there like a trap of being so attached to this play mindset that you can't find a project manager or a parent in yourself to just stick to one thing and play that, as opposed to keep playing. Thanks.
Good question.
What a question. A balanced question. They say constraints breed creativity, right? And so is it possible for play to happen outside of those constraints? So if your to-do list is this is a question I'm actually personally grappling with as well. Is how do we balance play with rigidity?
The answer I have is that we don't do it ourselves. I think that's the thing for me. It's like it's not all your task, It's doing stuff with other people together.
Yeah.
Can I give an opinion?
So yeah, that's fine.
I'd love to hear Jose, and then I'll share a reflection after, please.
I enjoy duality. So rigidity is a pole opposite to fluidity, and being is a pole opposite to doing. So play is part of being. It merges with doing, but it oscillates. It's two poles, and you're playing in a spectrum of being and doing, of being rigid and being flowing, of the yin and the yang. And so the balance is always changing. And when you go to one side, your balance will be on the other side, and vice versa. Is what I'm trying to communicate. Understood?
Yes, and I guess thank you. But the question then lies, how to find that balance with trying
inside
to
of
not.
you.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, or how to stick with one.
Well,
It's an expansive balance.
I'd love.
You can play more and be more disciplined. That's it.
Yeah, thank you,
yeah,
Jose.
that makes sense.
Another frame is this idea of emergence. And so a question is, are you attached to the results of your creation, or is the state of creating itself more important? And so if you think about your results as a byproduct or an emergence of the playful state, then is it actually important what you're applying that playful state to, or is it more important the emergent results that are coming out of the playful state in whichever direction you put it onto? And so if
Well,
you look at all
Well,
your projects, yeah, are you finding a common thread or recurring theme that's actually coming out of them anyway?
look, and now definitely getting to that, and especially in past few months, it feels like things come together. But I guess to just really stick on a theme of play, it's almost like how to not lose an excitement and persevere with one thing and learn to pause the other creative play new things. It's almost like when you work on a project and it keeps evolving and you always find new stuff and you're like, oh no, but there is also that and that, and you find new parallels. And that happens to me all of the time, and it very much matches the description of this playful approach to that, because I like to dissect things and then put them back together and then look through a different light and discuss it with someone else and put it through the completely different industry or whatnot. But then it just feels like it never gets me anywhere. And if we talk about here, not just the act of enjoying it, because I do enjoy it. And I probably, that's also, my uh, kind of a bug in here, that I like the process way more than I care about the product. Because I bloody love doing that, and I'm having the best time when I do it. But then, yeah, when you look at it, it's like, well, I just keep doing it and struggling to sustain my life.
It's like fucking around making a cake. I used to do that when I was a kid too. Mum used to just let me in the kitchen and I'd make mixtures and whatever, and sometimes end up with something. But it's kind of like doing that a million times for hours and hours. But at some stage, you have to actually cook something in the oven, and otherwise, you can't feed anyone.
Maybe. I would say maybe. And Sophie, I'm so excited because this is something that I've really danced with, and I'm finding a tremendous amount of play in various areas of my life. So I have a few comments here. The first one is are there any areas of your life that you are consistent in, where you like finish what you set out to do? Like, you seem like a pretty fit chick. Like, is there anything that you do fairly often that you continue to show up for?
No.
Nothing.
Well, look, I developed many philosophies, approaches in life, but I can't stick to one exercise. I can't stick to one thing, and I guess have an understanding of like the healthy thing. But if you look at, I'm just a very quick background. I'm 36 and I'm a naturopath and I'm doing the masters, and I have 4 other projects running and 10 other ideas, and none of them pay me. And I'm just so caught up in this loop, and I love what I do, but then
I so feel you. I so feel you. Okay, so I'm going to, I mean, at some point you and I will connect further, and I imagine that whether it's eating relatively healthy, or whether it's showing up for people you care about, or whether it's being out in sunshine every day, I imagine that there are actually things in your life that you're actually consistently showing up for. Maybe they're not the things that you're measuring. Maybe they're not the things that you're defining as success or good adulting, or this kind of frequency that I'm feeling of. Like, what I'm hearing, and I relate to this, is there's a really practiced reinforced identity of like, no, like I don't get anything done. Like, no, the answer is no. definitely not. Like, I don't, right? Cool. I believe you. I'm not invalidating your reality. Okay. I'm just saying that that's the identity that is so reinforced that it's like, great, I'm going to continue creating scenarios that repeat that. And that's fine. All I'm suggesting is that there might be areas in which it's not as true. And our whole life is like this ecosystem, right? Our identity is like this ecosystem. And so in those areas where that might be true, there's an opportunity to be like, huh, maybe it's not true here. Okay, cool. So like that's just one seed. But another thing I want to reflect is I'm going to send you this podcast that I've been listening to recently. That's all about habits or building habits or doing things more consistently. It's a beautiful podcast because it really ties together. I'll share it with anybody in this group too. It really ties together play and also showing up. And it doesn't use the word actually like discipline at all, or motivation, right? What it's really pointing to, and I'm not saying those things aren't wonderful. I like the word devotion, all these things. But what it's really pointing to is that we show up for things when we say, what would make this more fun? Right? Like, what would really make this more fun? And it sounds to me like you say, I'm very, very creative, right? I'm very, very creative. I can start all these projects. I can do all these things. But then you're like, but then I do a to-do list and then it gets stressful and blah, blah, blah. And so maybe like the to-do list or the thing, like maybe that's not working. So then where can you be more creative in how you're being in relationship to what you're getting done? And so one of the quotes I really loved in this podcast was not like we're taught like try harder, or try and try again, just keep showing up, try and try again, just try and try again. And I know like the word try is not the best, but like just keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up, right? Which is like what you're saying to me. Like I just want to keep showing up for these things consistently, right? And what he says, it's not try and try again. It's actually try and try differently. And what he means is that if the ways that you've approached aren't working, you can continue to be hard on yourself and reinforce this identity, right? Or you can get like really honest and be like, oh, cool. Like my name's Sophia. The approaches that I'm using aren't working. I'm like, where can I use all my fucking creativity? Like I've seen you, I don't even know you. And I've heard like, you're a DJ, you built this AI music, like you're a naturopath. Okay, cool. You're doing all these fucking things. Like I do not subscribe to the belief that you're not creative enough to figure out how to get more things that you want to complete done. It just might be that you're using other people's approaches. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, and I clearly, I very much feel you, and I have been my whole life trying different approaches, gamify this and not to-do lists, and I've fully removed deadlines last year, which is sort of a, like, getting somewhere, but yeah, can't say that there has completely been no progress, and it's very, like when you hear, and what I hear from you, when you hear so much extra new layer of input and understanding of some of the things that happening to you, it's kind of it cracks you up and you're like, yes. And I guess it's also this fact of distractibility for the game and for the creativity. It's almost like a shadow side of being playful and creative.
Well, I think you really like fun, right? Like you're like, oh, I can be moved by fun. And so what I'm saying is that rather than trying to destroy that, like use it, right? So for example, people are like, do the dishes or like finish baking the cake so to like feed the people. Like, okay, cool. So the new question I'm inviting in your reality, you could take it, is just every time you're doing something and it doesn't feel that fun, I'm not saying like walk away or like don't do the thing or da da da. I'm saying ask yourself, like your new favorite phrase, if you want, gets to be, what would make this more fun? Like,
thank you.
maybe the dishes while dancing,
I'm inviting this question fully. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm gonna write it down somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I'll text it to a guy with the podcast.
Something else is coming up. I think that play as a state is much more intelligent than we know. I almost think of it as it's like a force or an entity operating through you. And So the dance that you're describing there, to me, it sounds like the dance between essentially your lower and higher self. And it's like the breaks of insight and possibility that come through the clouds, and then the ego comes that back in, the lower self comes back in with all of these patterns and conditioned behaviors and thought forms and emotions that halt or change or move or shift into a different project. And so it feels like this is essentially the dance between the playful higher spirit self and the conditioned egotistical self. So the I mean, if you want a solution, but I'm not sure that's even a useful kind of language to think about. But it's like the solution essentially is more letting go, more surrendering of that resistance process that exists to this pattern and this cycle, because it's that resistance process that you're putting into words, which is actually creating and reinforcing more of it. Because you are really on the edge of amazing things in terms of all your projects. It's like things are just kind of clicking and coming in together in terms of all the work you've done. And so that's it's like more trust, more faith in the intelligence of play, in its capacity to structure things in a way that might not make sense from the perspective of the conditioned self looking up at it and says, well, that's crazy. What's going on up there? It's like, no, it's not ordered. It's not structured enough. Here's some order. Here's some boundaries. Here's some limits. It's like that might just be a fearful safety mechanism trying to hold back the potential of that higher playful spirit and what it can achieve and create if it's left to dance unbounded.
And fully, that's my highest spiritual belief, that everything that's happening is just us putting these limiters on ourselves to prevent achieving the highest potential. And then, the answer is to, as you said, let go and raise vibrations.
Yeah, and it's such a, it's such a, I don't know, boring. It's not a boring answer, of course, but it's the same answer over and over again. And it's like we need to hear the same thing all the time because of just how deep that conditioned process is. It's like if you've got decades of conditioning in terms of one way, well, you probably need decades of conditioning and or unconditioning in a new way as well.
Truth is boring.
Yeah,
A,
simple.
a, a big one on that for me is like the ego and Lois slips into the just the mechanics of back to good old money, and it's like, oh, hang on, this is long term, or like I get fear in letting it go because I'm like, but I need to actually pay the bill or XYZ tomorrow or whatever. And in a lot of stuff I've done, because I experienced exactly the same thing as Sophia, million ideas, almost there, move on to something else. And what I've been thinking lately is like getting more validation of the end point of completing something and it actually being successful, and wondering if I need to like do some smaller playful things, lemonade stand or something, just to actually do it, get it, and have it work, to try and overcome that fear that slips in and stops me on the big ideas and running them to the end. But I'm also kind of, that's another one of those. Then I feel it difficult to do that because I feel like, oh, well, I don't have time to do that because I should be working on the thing that's actually going to pay off. It's like, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying, getting stuck in the bottom, but I'm trying to work out how to break that loop. Wondering if you've got any comments on that.
I have a reflection, but I see Guy building models. So if you want to go, Guy, first.
Well, how to break that loop would essentially always be courage to experience more vulnerability. Because the loop is always coming out of a protection or shielding mechanism. And so then it's courage to move into a vulnerable place where that shielding mechanism can be dissolved through the recognition that you no longer need it. Because that playful state can't exist in a holding pan or in a shielding pan. And another element I think which is important is essentially feedback, externalized feedback and support on the journey that is happening. And so being in environments where that playful system or state, because if you think about the environment that we spend most of our lives in, it's like we get to be on calls like this, I don't know however many times you do calls like this, but this is like 1% of your life if you think about, and then you go back into your normal environment, and that environment is conditioning because you are conditioning. And so you go back into a normal environment where you continually recreate the old thinking loops, emotion loops, and behavior loops of the past. And then and that's why, even though that intention to change becomes available in expansive environments, when you then go back into the normal life, it gets shut down in loops of conditioning. And so more environmental exposure, more support, more feedback tangibly on the specific things that are being built can only maybe what I'm saying is look for that structure outside of you. It's like, what if you bring the play and you outsource the discipline? So you, yeah, I think that's what's emerging here. Is like,
Yeah.
because you can't really trust yourself to build that discipline in a way which is useful because it's coming out of conditioning. So if you put the burden of that discipline onto a structure outside of yourself, that's an exciting idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, then you have to relate to that thing. Like what they are.
I just saw in the chat too, somebody said that a cell can't protect itself and grow at the same time. That's exactly what happens to me. It's like survival mode kicks in and then big dreams is out for a while.
Fire. Yeah. There's something that Paul shared with me. Maybe you know this. I don't know your name, person next to Sophia.
I'm Tam. Hi guys.
Hey, Cam. Nice to meet you. So Cam, something that really helped me, even though I am somebody who like thinks I know a little bit about neuroscience and I know a little bit about the brain works and like I care about growth and evolution, right? And meanwhile, when Paul, Guy and I's mentor, said this, I was just like, what the fuck? Holy crap, this explains why I like don't keep practicing guitar, why I don't keep showing up for this, why I don't prioritize the thing that's like most important and blah, 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 right? And so with what Guy said, I agree with that in terms of like delegate what you don't necessarily want to be disciplined in. But if who you want to become, like who you will become in the process of doing the thing, not getting the outcome, but doing the thing, is someone that you want, then don't outsource that, right? And so something Paul said was super simple. He was like, hey guys, like when is dopamine released? And obviously like there's 4 different pathways and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, oh, novelty, blah, blah, blah. I imagined like, past boyfriends, like whatever, overshare, but I just imagined dopamine. Okay. and what he said was, yeah, a lot of people think that, or it's pleasure, it's this or that. He's like, nope, it is release in anticipation of what is familiar. And it doesn't matter what that is. If that's eating healthy, if that's working out, if that's, watching Netflix, whatever it is. And this has helped me so tremendously because when it comes to like going, like the moment before I go to pick up the guitar, the moment before I go to do the thing, there'll be resistance there because there's literally a dopamine withdrawal happening, which means like it is going to suck. Like neurologically, it is going to suck. So if we just become like machines without understanding like the neurobiology, right? It's like, oh, this is going to feel some kind of way. Now, all the stories I put on it of I'm bad, I'm this, I'm that, then just catapult something else. But if I can be with the sucking, actually what's happening now is I'm finding play in that feeling of like, oh, this sucks. My dopamine is low. Oh, I hate this. Oh, I'm lifting up my foot as I go to the guitar and like heavy like bricks, and then I do the thing. And like, and it actually, it doesn't matter if like what happens is that I might think, oh, I have to play the guitar for like 20 minutes and then it's worthy or whatever. Like, great, I showed up to strum 3 chords. great, I did the thing. You want to know why? Because I'm shifting the dopamine loop by just showing up and doing anticipation of what's familiar. So like something Guy talks about a lot, which I love, right? Like we can all talk about play and that's all like good and dandy. And I'm kind of bringing this more to like, I'm speaking less in theory when I give these examples because it helps me in terms of tangible reality. What do I do? But if you think of a tennis player, somebody who really loves playing, like the guy who just won the Australian Open, my mom just kept being like, he just loves tennis. He just loves it. Whereas there are tennis players who have won who are like, you know, fucking angry and mad the whole time. But this guy is probably going to be one of the best because he's having so much fucking fun. But he couldn't have fun if he didn't know how to swing a racket. He couldn't have fun if he didn't practice his serve 55 times. So it's like, actually, like there are areas, which what Guy calls like mechanical excellence, where like you actually need to cultivate the mechanical excellence in order to let the play, the fun, the joy flow through, right? And that's what I think you and Sophia are talking about, is like actually showing up for that mechanical excellence, right? And that to me is where like one, yes, the dopamine, understanding that. Two, what Guy is speaking to, which Sophia kind of intuitively hit on, of community and others and people, right? Sure, delegating, but to me what's actually more powerful and neurologically powerful is mirror neurons, right? If you're around a group of people that are doing the things that you actually want to be doing, like if I woke up in a co-living space where people were showing up to play guitar every day, do you think I wouldn't play guitar? Like it'd be damn near impossible, you know? So like whatever you want to do, design exactly the environment in the way of it. And the one thing that I can offer is that, and I've done this, I can say this because I am this, I'm a fucking pro at this, which is like the addiction to like blaming myself or considering myself wrong or bad in some way. All I'm saying is that belief actually can't exist with the belief of I'm creative as fuck and I can make anything fun. And I can do everything I want to accomplish. I don't have to leave it to like, I'm going to delegate it and I'm going to this and I'm going to that. Like, I actually want to become who I want to become. I want to fucking sing and play guitar. And like, I don't even have a great voice, but all of you at some point are going to have to fucking hear me because I'm showing up. Do you know what I mean? So like, so I just want to offer that as well in terms of, yeah, just like being having fun in relationship to ourselves. Like at the end of the day, it's actually never about what we're doing. It's about how am I treating myself as I'm approaching the thing I'm doing. And that's where the frequency of play really fucking lives.
Yeah, nice. And huge about the, it being around the right people. When I'm, even if I'm sitting in a room where other people are doing stuff that's not the same as me, I'm way more motivated to do things.
Totally.
Also, by the way, everyone has a good voice. You just have to find it.
Amazing. See, that's just some conditioned bullshit. And
Yeah.
thank you for that reflection. And I'll say, Sophia, if it makes you feel any better, like I literally schedule Zooms throughout my week with some of my friends just to get on a Zoom and say, we're going to get this, and this done. Like I say, I'm going to get this done. She says, I'm going to get that done. And then we mute each other on video for like 4 hours just because I can't, like, I'm not practiced at doing it myself, and that's okay because that's fun for me. It's not wrong, right, whatever. Some people will be like, oh, you're not motivated on your own. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm getting better at showing up for the things I want to do. And ironically, this entire week, she hasn't been available at all. And I've just been in it all day, having so much fun focusing. So, create what works.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Thank you for this. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad I came. I sat in an ayahuasca ceremony like 4.5 years ago, and I really wanted to know my purpose. And they said play. And I was so like fucking frustrated with that answer. And it's so funny that I'm sitting here. I don't know why I left that ceremony and never like researched play. It's so funny. I had this like aha moment. I was texting my boyfriend, did you know they researched play? Like there's psychologists with books about play, and he's like cracking up. So thank you. This is like clicking a lot for me. And I guess my question or something to offer to the group, and not make it about my story necessarily, but it's just like, how do we lead people into playful experiences? There was a point that it was said play is, where did I write this down? One second. It's like we have to put ourselves in the proper emotional state in order to play. And so I'm wondering, as I'm working with people and clients and teaching people, like, how do I bring in that level of play? Is that really up to my embodiment of it, or is there ways that I can pull play out of people? I don't know. Maybe these are semantics and we just have to play, but I'm curious if there's any thoughts.
I always have thoughts. Guy, if something inspires you, feel free. No,
Yeah, beautiful intention, first of all. And isn't it crazy? Like, I was also shocked. I was like, what? You can like research play? Like, what? You can like study this? I didn't, it just seemed like such a simple thing on the surface, but then, oh, wait a minute. All these people. I've just drop a link in the chat there. That's called Touch the Future. And that's just my favorite resource on this whole world and all of these kind of characters in this universe can be found on that website. Number one principle that's coming up is you cannot give to other people what you can't give to yourself. And so for you to create environments of play, of course, you have to be able to embody and bring that energy to the group. And then paradoxically not need the group to pick it up. And that's the kind of ironic paradox that is embraced at the heart of that experience. And so yeah, it would be your capacity to design and create environments where people can feel safe enough to let go of their conditioning. And so really, this comes back to perception and kind of persuasion, because it's about persuading people that they feel safe enough and that this is worth enough of their energy to do. And so it's a marketing question in my eyes, really. How do you tell effective stories to people about what play will do for them in their lives? And bring people together around a shared intention led by your pouring of heart energy into the group so that they can have a tangible experience of the thing through you and at the same time logically come to a conclusion that will be important for them. And so really for me it's a marketing question. It's about telling effective stories, which is I aim to tell a effective story today about what was important about play. And so discover what's important to the people in the group through an elicitation or discovery process, kind of like a sales call, and then allow them to connect play with the thing that's important to them. And so they say, well, I want to experience this. And it's only once they've said, well, I want to experience this, that now you bring in play and say, have you considered this as the solution to getting there? And so you're allowing people to let go of their limitation. And so it just comes back to power versus force for me. Create environments that allow people to move out of egotistical limitation on their own so that they can see the potential that could be available for them on the other side. So creating and stimulating those excitatory states. But that's such an exciting idea, like general, I think that intention that you have there is just so cool. And just that intention alone will just take you so far. I mean, that's the foundation of an incredible business. If you wanted it to be like, that's just, or not, it's just such an exciting idea. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been so inspiring. Appreciate both of you.
Tess, something that immediately emerged is it's like, I'm like saying shit that I know, is the who I be versus the what I do, right? Like how I be as I'm doing what I do. And so to me, like what we're talking about in play is ultimately like a frequency of how are we treating ourselves even in the moment, right? It's like, something Flynn, you were just at his thing, Tess always says is like, do I like who I'm being? Like, period. Do I like who I'm being? It's not, I was talking about this thing with him of like how I look in the mirror and like maybe I don't really like my face. And I'm like, I'm trying to be like, oh, I like my face. I like my face. And he's like, no. He's like, it's not about bypassing the bullshit. It's about, do I like who I'm being in relationship to myself as I'm looking at my face? And like from there, I can be more like this is kind of a hyperbolic share, but I can be more honest, which like I broke my nose when I was very little. And since I started with this practice, I'm like, right, like my nose, like I really don't like it because I can't breathe well through it. Right. So like instead of being like, oh, I love my face, I love my thing, like do I like who I'm being? And this is where the piece that I love, I love how Guy has articulated this piece of like vulnerability, like being the ultimate superpower, because to me, like this is something I notice comes very naturally to Guy, which I really appreciate about him. It's something that I personally like, it's an ecosystem I feel very at ease in. Is to me, vulnerability is like, let's say you're leading like some play, whatever thing. Let's say you're leading whatever you're leading, and I'm doing this because Tess, if you meet her in person, she's just very like, and amazing. So like, let's say you're leading this thing, right? You could be doing whatever you're doing, and then there's the like vulnerability to me is that attunement to the self, like to our honesty with ourself is, am I liking who I'm being? Right? Like really, like, because in that moment, there could be all kinds of like, I'm accomplishing this, or I'm doing so much, or I'm blah, 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 or this and that. But that's not the attunement to that frequency, to that really of like, actually, like, I'm feeling a little this in my body. Actually, I'm feeling a little anxiety. Like, we're so conditioned in these like outcome driven things, like these, like, finish baking the cake. Like, it's actually like, like that. How am I treating myself? The vulnerability and the self honesty of like, nope, something else is running right now that isn't actually joy, is to me the ultimate way to click back. That vulnerability to be fucking honest enough to say, you know what? Actually, I'm not okay with not learning how to play guitar. Like, or whatever it is in the micro moment, like this, just, yeah, cool. Like, oh, hey, it's okay, and it's not judging it. It's not rejecting it. Right. It's just like, interesting. I could be nicer to myself right now. Oh, fuck. I feel self-conscious, like, oh yeah, okay, that's true, that's real, that's vulnerable. I'm gonna love even in the self-conscious, whatever it is. But that's how we like continue to click back in my mind vibrationally to actually be the environment that other, let's say, cells are in. Thanks, Ashley. I love you. It's so funny. You just winked at me. You knew I was looking at you. Okay. Katie, I saw you come off camera. Was anything you wanted to come in? No pressure.
Oh no, I just wanted to show my face. I'm loving this though. Like I love play and I feel like Aisling shared this with me, so I'm just like excited to be here and yeah, I'm loving it. So thanks for letting me join.
Awesome. Yeah, we're so glad
And
to
I'm
have you.
also learning to play guitar and I sing. And what I'll say, Veronica, is I had a similar thing. For years I was like, I just want to learn, like I want to sing, but I don't have a good voice, this and that, like all these excuses. And then I just started opening up my voice, realizing, wait, we can all sing. And I took this vocal expansion like course. It was like a 3-day in-person thing when I was in Bali. And it was all about like just having fun and playing and being with community and like it was all about creating like safety and just speaking your truth essentially. And in that, your voice started opening. So it was like this realization that through the fun and through like what we genuinely just feel called to do, in my case it was singing, like we can get good at it like very quickly. So yeah.
I love that model of reality. Yes, thank you so much. I accept that belief system real quick. Yeah,
Real quick.
real quick. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here, Katie. Thank you for those of you who shared it. I also just want to share that Guy and I are coming up with this next portal. It's going to be either 3 or 6 months. And what's really exciting about this is that Paul is also bringing in live QA calls once a month, which we didn't expect. So that's really exciting. So for those of you who I haven't talked to Paul about, feel free to reach out to me personally, but most of you I've talked about him a lot. So that'll be really fun. And then pairing that with Guy giving us these presentations. So like we're building those mechanical skills to also ask better questions to then output different results or just different ways of being in relationship with ourselves as we're doing whatever we're doing, right? Because it's actually less about the results and more about our relationship with how we approach anything that we want to participate with in this life. Guys, is there anything else you want to share before we close?
Yeah, it's exactly that. And so moving from effect, which is the results, into cause, which is the state of being from which the results come from, is the essential intention. And I think this presentation so nicely framed what we're doing going forwards because, and this especially is the energy that Veronica is really skilled at bringing, is that playful color that can be put over any skill development process. And so the idea is to create an environment where skill development in terms of video marketing is the intention, and then paint it with this playful energy, which allows that more powerful way of overcoming limitation, conditioning, old thinking patterns, old stories, when you approach skill development through a bit more of an absurdist, abstract kind of way. And so thank you everyone for your time and attention today. I really appreciate your coming, and yeah, I hope to see you all again in the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Guy, and thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, guy.
It's amazing presentation, guys.
See ya, bro.
Go well.